So hi, Erika. It's lovely to meet you today. I'm really pleased to have you here.
Thank you.
So before we get started with the interview formally, I'd love to hear a bit about your background, please, for everybody to know.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking, how much time have you got? I can, talk about myself all day long. No, joke aside, I am Swedish by birth. I was born in Stockholm. I was born in a family with, my mother is an alcoholic, and there's a lot of dysfunction happening in my upbringing. So one of my survival techniques was actually I was like a sponge. So whenever my parents spoke English, this was way back in the 70s. So TV and radio was not as prevalent as it is today. But whenever my parents spoke English, I just tried to learn everything that they said. So English became my go-to little own alter ego world. So from the age of 9, I could hold conversations with foreign people, which was great. And suddenly this shy, very scared Erika found another Erika that managed to make herself understood and could communicate with strangers. So it was almost like English, in a way, released me. So fast forward a few years, and I left Sweden when I was 19. First, I went to Paris to study French, and from there, I skipped over the little channel to London, where I did my professional training as an actress and a singer. So I graduated mid-90s, and since then, I worked as a performer, singer, actress. And I'm not going to go too much into what happened next, because that's actually something that I know that you have a question for me that will touch on that subject again. So I'm going to leave that. But
Okay.
fast forward again, and I'm back. I had London as a base for 11, 12 years. And I've also lived in New York for a bit and Portugal for a bit. But I'm back in Sweden for a very long time now. It feels like, we talked about time before, and it feels like I just moved back from London, but it's actually 16 years this year. Long time ago. Yeah, and it feels like yesterday. But I'm here in Sweden, and I work with presentation technique and as an actress and a singer.
Wow.
And I've also written a book.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a really interesting background. Gosh, I didn't know so much about you, so that's very good. So Erika, tell me, when did you first start teaching presentation skills?
Well, my first experience came when, as I said, I was busy being a musical theatre performer, and I was out, at this point in time, I was out on a cruise ship when I fell ill. And I've not really been ill in my life, so I didn't understand what the physical signs were. I just thought, oh, we're on a ship, we dance a lot, I've pulled something in my back. But it turned out that it was an inflammatory autoimmune illness, one type of arthritis. I won't go into the whole boring nitty-gritty of that, but that sort of put a halt to my musical theatre career, because I couldn't move, let alone dance, for about 2 years. So yeah, that was tough. That was a life-changing moment, definitely. And when I was sort of mentally and physically strong, the production company that I had worked for, they phoned me up and they said, Erika, are you, would you be interested, would you be physically able to work as a so-called resident director, which basically means you're not on stage yourself, but you have the experience from having been on stage, so you can train with a team and fly out with them to a resort or a cruise ship and sort of install them at the resort to get the shows up and running, to make sure that they feel safe and everything. And then you leave the team to the dance captain and so forth. And for me, that was great. So I accepted. I was very happy.
Yeah.
I was back in that kind of creative musical theatre arena, which I love. It's so buzzing. And I trained with a team and flew out with them to install them at the resort. And suddenly, when I was there, I realized, oh my God, I don't have any formal training as a director. I only have my professional training and the experience and my gut instinct, right? As well as, which I didn't realize at the time, but my upbringing also sort of primed me for being always alert and reading between the lines, picking up on energies and sort of noticing when an argument may be bubbling or a misunderstanding or something, you know. So I had that intuitively as well. And when I was there, so I worked with the team and I helped them get the shows up and running. And what I realized when I came back was that I'd done a really good job. And it wasn't just, I mean, I'm quite shy. I don't give myself praise very easily, because I always find, well, I did that fairly well, but I have to improve these areas. But I came back with a sense of, wow, you know, I managed to do that. And there was a conflict there that I managed to nip in the bud, because I had sensed it brewing and I could, you know, handle it really well. And as a result of that, the team felt they had even more confidence in me and trust as well, because they felt that, you know, this isn't just someone who comes out here and doesn't really care about us or the shows. She cares about us as people as well as the shows. So fast forward some 20 odd years since that moment in time, and I still draw on that experience and all my training. And now, of course, I've got additional presentation skills as well that I teach, and that's what I do. And I find it so interesting, because I work with management teams, and I work with people that have a lot of responsibilities in their work arena, and they may feel comfortable getting up, holding presentations when, you know, they need to talk about the numbers and how the company's doing, blah blah blah, in Swedish, and suddenly they have to do it in English, and boom, their confidence goes, because they don't feel that safe in English. So with my bilingualness, I'm able to help them in both arenas, both the whole presentation, but also their language skills and that. So yeah, so I work with management teams in the business arena, as well as actors who contact me and say, oh, Erika, I have a big audition coming up. Could we, you know, in English, and could you help me improve my English? So yeah.
Wow, that's an amazing story. It's really incredible. So the opportunity, well, the threat of the back injury or the back problem was kind of a cloud with a silver lining. You've turned it into a really positive experience and blossomed from it. That's a heck of a story. I'm really impressed.
Thank you. It took time. Let me tell you, but yes, absolutely. I totally agree.
You've thrived from that. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Whoa!
So in your opinion, what is the #1 starting point when it comes to presentation skills?
Wow. I would say nerves, and how you respond to nerves, because we all get nervous. We all do. Some people say, oh, I love getting up on stage, and that's great. Then you have a positive expectation. You might feel that adrenaline rush, but it's still nerves. You know, it's still that same old fight and flight system that gets activated. And that system does things to our voices, it does things to our bodies, it does things to our breathing, it does things to our senses, because our brain is trained, our whole biological being is trained to hone in on that danger. And whether you respond in a flight way or a fight way, you know. So when I start working with people, that's kind of where we start from. Because most people they're not comfortable filming themselves, they're not comfortable recording themselves, so they don't really have perhaps a correct idea of how they seem when they get up. They might have an idea from inside out, oh, I get nervous, you know, I can feel the heart, blah, blah, blah. But they're not really aware of how we perceive them, you know, and that's really interesting, because the gap can be huge. In my case, it was. And again, it was a stark realization when I realized that for the first time early in my career, still as a musical theatre performer, when someone filmed a show and there was this one number in the middle of that show when suddenly my nerves were super activated again. And I remember to this day standing in the wings doing my breathing exercises, wondering why I felt nervous. You know, we'd done 20 minutes of the show, I was up and running, but before that number, something in that number triggered my nerves. And the dance captain, she filmed it and we watched it as a team. And I sat there looking at this thing and I'm like, is that me? I look as if I'm walking in the park, you know, having a wonderful moment with friends. And I'm like, that what my insides are in utter turmoil.
Yes.
And it looks as if I'm just kind of, yeah, whatever. That was scary. And that's, for me, that was the number one point when I realized that, what goes on inside of me is not necessarily how the audience perceives me. So yeah.
That's really interesting, because I've read about quite a few celebrities that tell a similar story. They look amazingly confident on the outside, they're a brilliant actor, but they say that on the inside it's panic and terror, and that this is a common theme. So it's very interesting to hear you say that, because they look amazing, but inside exactly the same story. So I find that really fascinating.
Yeah.
Interesting. But also, I suppose a certain amount of adrenaline is quite healthy, because we need to be sharp, we need to be on our toes. So a certain amount of adrenaline is quite good, because it does help us stay tuned in and be alert and giving a good performance. But obviously too much is
no, absolutely. The whole thing that I mean by that is knowledge. You have to know how you respond to your nerves.
Yes.
And what effect that kind of fight or flight system has on your body. You have to be aware of that, because then you can work with your nerves.
Yes.
You know, then you know that, okay, I'm hearing that thought in my head. I'm telling myself that, I'm probably feeling a little bit sick. I probably shouldn't, do that presentation today. I better put it off. That's nerves telling you dangerous situation coming up, maybe you shouldn't do it. Or that's the flight. I tend to be flight. So I've had to work a lot with that. Yeah.
I find it so interesting, because I think in terms of psychology and so forth, a lot of human behavior, my own included, is very irrational, because when we actually look at a situation, there's no physical, as you say, we have a survival mechanism from thousands of years ago. It's either the big tiger is going to come and eat us, or we run quickly. And in the modern world, things like standing in front of an audience, it's not going to really affect our health, and it's not going to affect our life, but we still have that same physiological reaction to it, and it's quite irrational. And even though we know it's irrational, there's our subconscious that controls us. We don't always control ourselves as well as we'd like to.
No, exactly. And for me, when I started out, hearing things like, what could go wrong? Imagine that the audience is sitting there naked, blah, blah, blah. Didn't do anything for me. It didn't diminish my nerves. It didn't make me feel more confident or anything. I've had to learn the hard ways, what works for me there and then, in that moment when I'm so nervous that I'm standing in the wings and my teeth are shattering. Ooh. What works then? How can I breathe deeply in order to perform that song in a concert situation or whatever show situation, and I'm that nervous 5 minutes prior to walking out on stage? What works for me? So I have a lot of tools in my toolbox that I'm passionate about sharing now, because so many people have things that they can teach others and things that they want to convey, but nerves and other things get in the way, so we don't get to partake of their knowledge,
Sure.
So,
they're not always being their best selves in front of the audience,
exactly.
Frustrating for them, for sure.
Whoa!
So with all your experience, Erika, can you recommend an exercise to share with people that would benefit them?
Absolutely, you bet. Okay, so in Swedish, I call this exercise blåsbälg. I'm not quite sure what that is in English, but if you imagine a bagpipe, the bagpipe sort of squeezes a huge lung, artificial lung, to make the air come out of the pipes. And our lungs work in a similar way. So this is an exercise that you can use even when you're on stage, when you pause. And you can pause and relax a little bit and just look as if you are awaiting a question or pausing in the moment. And whilst you do that pause, you breathe out.
Right.
And when you breathe out, When you hit that point, when you've exhaled fully, you pause a tiny bit. And then when you release it, you're like that bagpipe, and you let the arms go and your lungs fill up automatically, because your body knows how to breathe. So all we have to do, and rather than trying to take an in-breath first, if you are tense and nervous, that breath has nowhere to go because your body is so clenched. Your shoulders might be up by your ears, your breathing might be really shallow up here. So if you start with exhaling, then you're forcing your lungs and your diaphragm and everything in your body to engage. So you exhale, 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 until you have no more breath. And then you hold it, and then you just release that tension. And you breathe in naturally, because your body knows how to breathe in. And if you need to do that twice, do it twice. But normally, after a while, when you've practiced it a little bit, you only need to do it once, and suddenly, boom, you're there.
So that amazing breathing exercise will help to calm people down, quash their nerves, and give a fantastic performance.
Well, Brilliant. It's one of the key pieces, I find, definitely.
Okay.
It connects you, it reconnects you to your body, your breath drops, and your voice drops. And when your voice drops, you have more power. But not only that, your power, your speaking, there's a difference. If I'm very tense, then my body tends to be up here, and my breathing is quite shallow, and I'm up here, and I have no power. And the people listening are like, oh God, her voice is so squeaky, I don't really want to listen. But if I do that breath exercise, and my body drops, my voice drops to where it's supposed to be, then suddenly, wow, it's quite peaceful to listen to what I have to say.
And I think I'm also sensing that it kind of helps to slow down, because I know with me, when I'm nervous, I speak very quickly, and that's not always a good thing. If you're doing a webinar or a presentation, people need to be able to absorb the information that you're giving them. If it's delivered too quickly, it's like a fire hose. They can't absorb it. But by slowing down and pacing and relaxing and speaking at a good pace, as I'm consciously trying to do right now, it's a better experience for the audience, because you're not overwhelming them. It's not like a machine gun delivery. It's like you're on the same kind of you're speaking at the same rate that they can actually absorb it, as opposed to most of it just like flying over the head because it's too fast. So that's something I've consciously tried to do as well. So I'm getting some good tips here from you as well. So thank you.
Oh, good. I would say that is part of your fight and flight mechanism, and that you are probably prone to fight, because that's one thing. When you're prone to fight, then your tempo goes up, your volume goes up, you're a little bit more karate. It's almost like you have to fight that audience in order to, and for an audience, that can be quite scary. Because it's like verbal arrows that you're shooting in a sharp tempo, because you mustn't let that danger attack you first. You have to keep attacking it, blah, 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 blah. So yes, good on you that you've discovered that in yourself. So breathe and absolutely pause.
Interesting. Brilliant. Thank you. I'm sure everyone watching this will benefit from that. So that's brilliant. If people that are watching this video, they're going to be very impressed with what you have to say. If they want to get in touch with you and get some coaching or a course or so forth, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, the absolute best way to do it is to contact me directly on my email, which is hello@erikadittmer, all in one.com. And Erika with a K, and Dittmer is DITTMER. But I'll write that somewhere as well on a caption. Yeah.
Brilliant.
That would be the absolute best way.
Fantastic. Well, Erika, thank you very much. That was absolutely, for me, that was fascinating, and I'm sure other people will really enjoy it as well. I'm learning from you about how to improve my own presentation skills for my webinar, so that was fantastic. I'm sure we'll talk again.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Bye.